Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities, work our way through the dollar, yields, precious metals, and commodities ETFs that I follow. I'll interject my financial opinions as we go through it. If you need help with anything, check out finding-value.com. That's where I dive deeper into all these topics. And we do have a coupon code that is still active, Mayday, M-A-Y-D-A-Y, one word. And if you're looking for potential individual companies for this bull market that's coming and that we're in, that's where I would go. Let's dive in here. Let's take a look, see what's going on today. We're going to start with the dollar. I know someone asked me to create this a little bit darker, so you go to watermark and then you just darken it a little bit. So there's the DXY. You can see it a little bit easier, hopefully on your phone there. This still looks weak to me. And what I'm gauging to see that is these big selling pressure move, the weak bounce, very well could be a inverted flag pattern. So I'm still waiting to see if this thing drops to the downside. If it drops to the downside, most likely it's going to be driven by yields coming and driving back from yields. So when we look at yields, it's in a very similar situation. We can see that we've got lots of downside selling pressure coming in here. This is our bounce. And then the bounce, depending on how you draw it in there, could easily head lower here at some point. Could there be some sort of fear that gets re-injected back into the market, causing yields to fall? And that very well could be the case. And, it doesn't have to end up that way. If we get big green candlesticks to show up and we come all the way back up, then I very well could be my first, I guess, response to this move could be wrong. But to me, this still looks like we could bounce and roll over. The reason I wait and I look is we could bounce like this, and then maybe we find support again in that general area, or we blow out and head far lower in yields where we come down quite a bit. And that could impact the markets in a negative way because people are running to bonds because of some fearful event or a slowdown in the system or something like that. 10-year yields are doing something very similar. We can see that we're getting some selling pressure in those on the longer end, which makes me think that we could roll over at some point and head lower in yields. And that generally is bearish because there's something in the system that is slowing down and weakening. And that's why the markets are basically running to bonds for safety. 30-year yield also very similar as the 10-year. We're getting some selling pressure right here against resistance. This could be your full retest and then the move lower. And it is a bearish engulfing that we got today on the 30-year. TYX TNX ratio, this is a pullback consolidation. So think of it as like a consolidation that might look something like that, whatever it is. And we're coming from a really low level upward. So when this comes back up, that is the market pricing in a potential slowdown. A lot of the times during this move higher, we get these problems. The great financial crisis, COVID. This was in 2000 coming on up. So this was the recession, tech recession. And then maybe something occurs somewhere in this range as this unwinds. I don't necessarily know, but what I do know is that when this goes up, generally speaking, precious metals get a good tailwind, the safe haven investment asset. Bond prices heading higher today. There we are. So this is the breakout, the return move, and we could be heading higher here. And that's people running to the safety of bonds. Now, I'm not necessarily doing that. I'm not suggesting that people run into TLT, but this does look like we could potentially run higher. 2-year versus the 10-year, we're up. So the curve did invert. We had the 2-year that was up a little bit today, and the 10-year was down. And here it is with the inversion of the yield curve at 1.03. When this uninverts, And I don't know if it's going to uninvert. We could stay inverted here. I'm not stating that I know the future, but if it does uninvert, that's generally when we get the problem. And this is when it comes on down and then the problem. In history, that is where we get the problem. Coming on down, the problem, was all through here. So we can watch this, we can gauge to see what the market thinks and where they're adjusting yields. And this is the driver of it, guys. The bond market's the driver. The equity market is all the caboose. So if you can tell where the bond market, what it's doing, where it's going, and if we come down, that's going to be your uninversion of the yield curve. It's going to be a problem in the system. Some sort of event will probably occur if something does. It almost always happens during these downward moves in yields, and then maybe they do stimulus or something like that. They lower rates, they do some sort of stimulus, and they start the cycle off again like that. Gold up about $5 an ounce, not a huge day, and again going higher because of all the market conditions in the bond market. If they were to materialize yields lower. Looking at silver, that was down a little bit today, but that still looks good. We've got the bullish engulfing yesterday, which is bullish. And then we have a small bloody nose today, which is a small profit taking day. I'm still in the camp that this is going to go higher. We've got platinum down a little bit, down 1.1%. And we're still squeezing in that pattern there. Palladium down a little bit. We're right on support and support resistance. Resistance as we go up, support as we come down. So we're right on top of it. GDX up a little bit, 0.82, GDXJ up a little bit, and SILJ all up a teeny bit. Now, we entered this from the top side down. We'll see if there's selling pressure across the board that's coming up here. That selling pressure would drive people into the bond market, lowering interest rates, and it could be more of a sell everything type of event if that does materialize. And that's kind of what I'm watching out for. And that can drag down gold and silver mining companies, even though they're in favor here. But that very well could drag everything lower. So that's my opinion there. They are well positioned. It's just if you get a sell everything event where liquidity becomes a problem, it could drag it down before heading higher. XEU to gold ratio still favorable. It is up today, 0.75%, and it still is above big important trend line. So everything looks good for this to continue higher with time. We've got crude oil up 1%. Putting in kind of a bearish or a bullish candlestick here with a nice good little wick at the bottom on the weekly if we can finish the week strong. The daily here, not a bad candlestick today. We'll see if we can continue that momentum. What I really want to see, if you're going to be bullish, we want to break. We want to break. If there's a slowdown in the system, we could get a detour that is lower before the break higher. And it could be exact. I mean, this could be an exaggerated move depending on how the system reacts to it. So we can go either way from where we are positioned right now. We have not broken to the upside, and I know the fundamentals are good, and I know everyone wants to hang their hat on the fundamentals of the sector. The fundamentals of the sector is going to get trumped by the macro big picture view if a recession materializes. So that's and the bond market, you'll see that in the bond market and yields. Yields trump the sector fundamental, and I don't care what people talk about in the sector. Yields are going to trump it. So if yields decline and there's a slowdown coming, it's going to trump the sector's bullishness, and we could get dragged down with the overall market. TTF gas heading on higher, barely. Looking pretty good though. Still looking good for a move higher. That's going to drag up that Newcastle coal futures. Natural gas in America has been getting dragged up a little bit. We've broken the downtrend line. I don't think we're going to go and just rip way up here or anything. I think we'll move sideways. We need a little bit of production and supply to come off. Our boy XOP, yeah, you know me, we're back to that resistance level, the trend line here. Um, I'm watching this very closely. I'd love for this to go on up, but we've got a big fat bearish candlestick here, and we're underneath resistance. And we very well could roll over. So I'm watching, is what I'm going to say. OIH also getting a little bit of selling pressure today. Not a big selling pressure candlestick, but we drop like a rock and we're consolidating here. This could be a consolidation pattern, which is a continuation pattern lower. We are underneath support, which now is resistance. We've got a big fat bearish candlestick here. So I'm looking at this like, all right, let's get some trading sessions. Could this be, a move lower based off the yen carry trade unwinding? A lot of people like to use narratives to explain away the chart pattern or the movement. But to me, this is what they sold. So maybe a slowdown is coming, which could add pressure. Doesn't mean that energy service companies are bad. It means the macro will trump everything. Maybe I should say that a few times. Macro will trump everything. Newcastle coal futures continuing to head higher, up 1%. Looks fantastic. Following TTF nat gas. We've got Sprott Physical Uranium Trust down a little bit. We're still in this big pattern, and I don't really have anything more to say here. We need to see more trading days. The uranium futures price is right in the tip here, playing the game just the tip there. And we could see this move higher. We could see a little drop lower. We'll see. We're in this falling wedge, and it's got a 3-hump consolidation. Generally, that's bullish for a move higher. So we've got all these things lining up, along with an inverted yield curve and yields that have broken to the downside. Talk about a difficult market condition because things are not in alignment, but we'll see what occurs. URA up just a teeny bit. Again, we've had lots of selling pressure. Is this a bearish formation where we could pop out to the downside? Don't know yet. And I don't like necessarily getting in when you've got this big selling pressure candlestick move and not much of a bounce here. I like seeing big green candlesticks come in. So we could bounce or something on the lines of that. URNM also, we're holding. It's not bearish yet. So we're holding. And we're holding in URNJ as well. We're just kind of moving sideways. But this very well could give out if the overall market starts to crap on itself. Macro versus the sector fundamentals. Copper up a little bit today. We're right on support. We'll see if that holds. COPX trading very similarly. We've got iron ore down a little bit, but it's right on support coming up here. And again, we'll see if that holds. Looks like a double bottom to me. Aluminum up 0.52%, up against support resistance. The way that I see this is we're kind of coming to a corner, but we entered it from the top side down. Are we going to break higher? Are we going to break lower? We'll see if the support holds. We've got nickel heading a little bit lower. And again, guys, I'm not in the camp to be jumping in front of these things. Momentum's down. We'll see if the buyers come in. Moves down a little bit. ETF right against resistance. And remember, we shot lower here with some pretty good force. And we're struggling to get back to the resistance level. We'll see if we get follow through tomorrow or if we break. I'm just waiting and watching. Emerging markets is above support. This actually looks pretty good. And I would suspect emerging markets to do well over time when this slowdown kind of gets behind us. I think the dollar will be weaker, and I think emerging markets will have its time in the sun here. KRE down 0.5. And again, this looks like a consolidation. Top side down. It could head a little bit lower, and we've got support underneath us at 50 bucks, 50-ish dollars. TAN down 2%. It's just hanging out at a real low level, and this very well could go lower. Momentum lower. On support, we'll see if it holds. Lithium down a teeny bit today, right on support. Momentum is lower, and we've got a consolidation here. We'll see what occurs. RMX down a little bit. Momentum's definitely lower. And again, we'll see if we can make a stand here or if it's just going to continue to go lower. I wouldn't jump in front of it. Baltic Dry Index moving sideways at support. We've got XHB up a little bit, about 0.4%. Again, we entered this to the downside. Looks like some sort of consolidation, which we could still end up going lower in the short term. Russell 2000's got that look where it's almost like we're coming up and it wants to go lower. I know, people want to be optimistic, but I'm just seeing it the way it is, and we could see potential downside. S&P 500, same thing. And we may not end up going lower. I could be wrong, but we came down. This is a pattern there. It's a bearish pattern. This could very well be a bearish pattern again. And we're up in a rising wedge that's broken to the downside. So this could be a return move that we end up heading lower in. NASDAQ's got a very similar chart pattern, squeezing up into a rising wedge, throw over top, bearish engulfing, bearish engulfing. So there's one here and one here. This is a flag pattern. Down could be a flag pattern or something like that. So I'm still waiting to see what this looks like. SMCI a little bit lower. This is a pretty bearish move, guys. That setup there, we've seen this setup in other locations in commodities. When commodities peaked in 2021, there were setups that looked like this. Other setups, they continued higher because they were buying back shares, making a bunch of money, doing a bunch of cool stuff. Nvidia also trading sideways, still looks weak. I don't consider this a strong chart pattern. I would not be buying here, and there is support going across there. We are at a support level. Bitcoin up 2.37%. We're still within this pattern, still holding on. And Ethereum down 3%. Still looks good to go higher. That is a bloody nose, but still looks good to move on higher at this current time. That doesn't mean that the overall market, if it were to pull back and yields were to pull back, doesn't mean that this wouldn't be impacted. So that's what I'll say there. So that's what I've got for today, guys. Give me a thumb up for the content. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the website if you'd like to. And we have Mayday coupon code. And that's all I've got for today. So we'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.